Imagine standing in the middle of a city where the streets are filled with smoke, the sky glows bright orange, church bells ring without stopping, and thousands of people run for their lives. Children cry, horses panic, and flames rise higher with every passing minute. In just a few hours, one of the greatest cities in Europe would become a burning nightmare. This is not fiction. This is the true story of the Great Fire of London, a disaster that changed the course of British history forever. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to History Uncovered, where we reveal the world's most fascinating and mysterious historical events. Now let's travel back to the year 1666. At that time, London was one of the busiest cities in Europe. Nearly 80,000 people lived inside the old city walls. Merchants, blacksmiths, sailors, and traders filled the narrow streets every single day. The city was growing rapidly, but beneath its success lay a dangerous problem that almost no one noticed. Most houses were built from wood. Their roofs were covered with tar. The streets were so narrow that the upper floors of buildings almost touched each other. Inside homes and shops, people stored firewood, oil, candles, hay, and coal. During the summer of 1666, almost no rain had fallen for weeks. The wooden buildings became extremely dry, turning the entire city into a giant pile of fuel. It was only a matter of time before disaster struck. That disaster began during the early hours of September 2, 1666. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, inside a small bakery on Pudding Lane, owned by Thomas Fariner, a fire quietly started. Historians believe that after a long day of baking bread, some hot embers remained inside one of the ovens. During the night, those embers slowly ignited nearby pieces of firewood. At first, the flames were small. No one imagined that this ordinary accident would soon destroy thousands of homes. The Fariner family woke up surrounded by thick smoke. They managed to escape through an upstairs window onto the roof of a neighboring house. Almost everyone survived, but one servant failed to escape and became one of the first known victims of the disaster. As the fire spread from the bakery to nearby buildings, local residents rushed outside carrying buckets of water. Some tried to tear down burning wooden walls with axes. Others formed bucket lines from nearby wells. But nothing worked. The flames were spreading too quickly. A powerful east wind blew through the narrow streets, feeding the fire with fresh oxygen. Burning pieces of wood flew across rooftops and landed on houses far away from the original fire. Within minutes, one street became 3. 3 became 10. Then entire neighborhoods were burning together. People stared in disbelief as walls of fire raced across the city faster than anyone could stop them. Smoke covered the morning sky. The air became almost impossible to breathe. Families rushed back inside their homes to collect whatever they could carry. Some grabbed money. Some carried family Bibles. Others picked up blankets, food, or precious jewelry. Parents held their frightened children tightly while searching for a safe way out of the city. Thousands of people flooded the narrow streets at the same time. Carts loaded with furniture blocked the roads. Horses became frightened and ran wildly through the crowds. Many families abandoned everything they owned simply because they could no longer move through the traffic. Meanwhile, city officials gathered to decide what should be done. In those days, there were no modern fire engines or professional firefighters. The only effective way to stop a massive fire was to destroy buildings ahead of the flames, creating large empty spaces called fire breaks. Without wooden houses to burn, the fire would eventually lose its strength. However, this decision required permission from the Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. When he arrived to inspect the fire, he believed it was not serious enough to destroy people's homes. He hesitated. That hesitation proved disastrous. Every minute of delay allowed the fire to grow stronger. Soon, the flames became completely uncontrollable. The powerful wind pushed enormous walls of fire through London's crowded streets. Warehouses filled with oil, coal, timber, and cloth exploded one after another, sending burning debris high into the air. The heat became so intense that glass windows shattered before the flames even touched them. Wooden doors burst into flames on their own. People later described hearing a terrifying roaring sound, like a giant beast swallowing the city. Church bells rang continuously across London, warning everyone to escape. The River Thames quickly filled with boats carrying desperate families away from the burning city. From the water, they watched helplessly as their homes disappeared behind enormous clouds of smoke. By the evening of September 2, the fire had already destroyed hundreds of buildings. But the nightmare had only just begun. Ahead of the flames stood London's greatest treasures, its famous churches, busy marketplaces, government buildings, and the magnificent St. Paul's Cathedral. No one knew whether these historic landmarks would survive, or whether London itself was about to disappear forever. As the second day began, London was no longer fighting a simple fire. It was fighting for its very existence. The powerful east wind continued to drive the flames deeper into the city. Every hour, the fire became larger, hotter, and more destructive. Streets that had once been crowded with merchants and travelers were now filled with smoke, burning debris, and terrified families trying to escape. Warehouses packed with oil, timber, cloth, coal, and wine quickly caught fire. One after another, they exploded with tremendous force, sending burning pieces of wood flying across the city. Each explosion started new fires, making the disaster even worse. Thousands of people abandoned their homes forever. Some escaped carrying only a small bag of belongings. Others left with nothing at all. Many watched helplessly as the houses they had spent their entire lives building disappeared into the flames within minutes. The River Thames became crowded with boats filled with frightened families. From the safety of the water, they looked back at London and saw nothing but a city covered in smoke and fire. Soon, the flames reached one of the most famous buildings in England, St. Paul's Cathedral. Many people believed the massive stone cathedral would survive because it was built from strong materials. To protect their valuables, merchants had even stored books, furniture, and important documents inside the cathedral. But no one expected what happened next. The cathedral was surrounded by wooden scaffolding because it was being repaired. The dry timber caught fire almost instantly. Within a short time, the flames surrounded the entire building. The intense heat became so powerful that the lead covering the roof began to melt and flow through the streets like silver rivers. The beautiful stained glass windows shattered under the extreme temperature, and finally, the enormous wooden roof collapsed with a deafening crash. For many citizens, watching St. Paul's Cathedral burn felt like watching the heart of London disappear forever. King Charles II now realized that the city could no longer wait. He personally ordered soldiers, workers, and ordinary citizens to pull down houses standing in the path of the fire. Entire rows of buildings were demolished using hooks, ropes, and even gunpowder to create wide fire breaks. It was a heartbreaking decision. Families stood silently as their own homes were destroyed, not by the fire, but by the people trying to save the rest of the city. Finally, after 4 terrifying days, the wind began to weaken. Without strong winds to feed the flames and with new fire breaks slowing its progress, the fire gradually lost its power. On September 6, 1666, the Great Fire of London was finally brought under control. When the smoke cleared, the scale of the destruction shocked the entire nation. More than 13,000 houses had been destroyed. Over 87 churches, including St. Paul's Cathedral, were reduced to ashes. Government offices, markets, shops, warehouses, and public buildings had vanished. Nearly 80% of the old city of London had been wiped out. Tens of thousands of people were left homeless. Although official records reported only a small number of deaths, many modern historians believe the real number was much higher. The intense heat may have completely destroyed many bodies, while the deaths of poor citizens often went unrecorded. But from this tragedy came a new beginning. London was rebuilt with wider streets and stronger buildings made of brick and stone instead of wood. Strict building regulations were introduced, making the city far safer than before. The Great Fire of London was one of the darkest moments in British history, but it also became the event that transformed London into a modern city. Today, more than 3 centuries later, visitors can still stand near Pudding Lane, where a single spark changed history forever. The Great Fire reminds us that history is not always shaped by kings, wars, or powerful armies. Sometimes, history changes because of one small mistake, one forgotten ember, and one night that the world would never forget. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to History Uncovered, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another journey into the darkest and most fascinating chapters of history.